And what you is then?
I from that next place.
You waiting here to take us? Like you's the bus driver to there?
No, man, I on holiday.
Some spot you pick.
We are back, and we're back on my favorite time of the week. It's movie night. Everybody loves movie night, and we have a guest, Richard Vasquez. Good to see you, Richard.
Hello.
Richard's an old friend of ours from Glendora High School, and we're also going to do a video on Glendora High School, a little one. But I just wanted to say that it's good to have him back, and I found that we can talk about a movie that we all really enjoy. So we don't really do that. We just talk right off the bat. I'm gonna say I love this movie, and it's Meet Joe Black. And by the way, this is the first in Pod and Deliver history. We have one of the reviewers wearing a Meet Joe Black T-shirt, like the title of the movie on their shirt. Isn't that
Show it,
interesting?
Richard. Show it, Richard. Show us the shirt.
Can you see it?
Stand up.
We could. I like it.
Yeah, but it's Meet Joe African
My
American.
heart.
I made it about 20 minutes ago.
I would think you would have got it done years ago, but it looks great, Joe. I'm saying Joe, Richard.
So
Yeah.
I have to say that I was going to originally say, thinking through this discussion of this movie, is that everybody knows Meet Joe Black, but actually not everybody knows Meet Joe Black. I was talking to this woman last night and I was mentioning this movie,
Nice.
and she said, "What? What are you talking about? I have never heard of this. Starring who? These two actors? No, I would have heard of this." And I said, "It's real. It's now we've got two. This is
We
scary."
got two Richards.
Uh, so before I hand it over to you, Richard, your thoughts about the movie, I want to just, for those of you who don't know, this movie was released in 1998, directed by Martin Brest, the great director of such fantastic films as Going in Style, Scent of a Woman, Midnight Run. I mean, this guy had a run. And I also want to say, and we'll talk about the actors right now. I want to say that whenever I think of this movie, I think of a lot of things, but including a little conversation I had at the Mark Taper Forum where I used to work. Jacob also worked there, the Music Center, and a particular subscriber walked up to me and was very cranky about the offerings that season and didn't like the play that was up at intermission. And he goes, "Man, the shows this year are not very good." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I wish, he was talking about different shows." And I go, "What's the best show that ever came through this place at the at the Taper Forum?" And he said, "Oh, that's easy." He said, "The best show that ever came through here was Death Takes a Holiday." And I thought, wow, so I had been looking for it for many years. I had wanted to see a staging of it, but I've never seen it anywhere. But this movie is adapted from that classic play. Originally Italian play, starring Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins, Claire Forlani, and I guess you have to start. I also should mention Jeffrey Tambor because he plays kind of a thankless role and does it very well. For me, the movie starts with those performances. Brad Pitt, it's interesting because he had come off a little run, and I wasn't really that impressed. He had done an Interview with the Vampire, Legends of the Fall. No shade on those movies, but I didn't think much of him. I just thought of him as like some kind of teen heartthrob. Then I saw 12 Monkeys, and I thought this guy is a talent. And then this movie comes out, and Fight Club, and then this movie. And he plays such control here, especially if you contrast it to 12 Monkeys. The themes in this movie, and I guess before I get to the themes, and I'll do that later maybe. I'll let you talk, Richard. But also Anthony Hopkins. It's it's this control. He also plays kind of this controlled thing where he's dealing. This movie is about death. That's who Joe Black is. Death takes a
Yeah.
holiday. Death takes a break from taking lives. Um, Richard, I'll let you talk about when it's back to my turnaround. I'm going to tell you that there's a scene in this movie I think about all the time from the first day I saw it at the theaters. I think about it all the time. And as I was watching it, it's like the third time I've seen this movie. I was like, I get goosebumps when the scene came on, and it's just unforgettable. Even as I saw it this week, I go, "What an amazing scene!" I'll talk about that scene in a few. What for you, Richard, makes this movie great?
Uh, well, I watched it again last night. Actually, I started it Thursday and I finished it last night. And there was just several parts. Of course, the one part, the scene that's quick that goes black in the very beginning of the movie, right?
That's the scene I'm thinking of. Unforgettable.
After the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw this movie back in '98 when it came out in Sherman Oaks at a theater, a small theater. I lived in Van Nuys, and a friend of mine. I don't even know why we went to this movie. I don't even know what this movie. I just know that Brad Pitt was in it, and Anthony Hopkins, right? And Claire I didn't even know about until this movie. But that part, when they leave the restaurant and you're just captivated by the interaction, she got swept off her feet. Lightning struck, right?
Yeah, she meets
Like,
the Brad Pitt character in this coffee
right.
shop. They have this interaction and they sort of part ways.
Now, do you not want me to say anything? Because there are people out there that probably haven't seen this.
I will say this. I will say this. I don't know, Jake. This is kind of like, I don't think it matters,
It's
huh?
been out for 25, 27 years, so I think we could just
It's
go for
Share
it.
what you
Yeah.
share what you want.
So when obviously she's got issue with the boyfriend she's seeing, Drew, who's, who is just an opportunist type person. So, and she just really hasn't been struck by but nobody has swept her off her feet like Brad Pitt in this movie. And that's part at the restaurant when they're having breakfast, she just got swept off. And especially when he said, you struck by lightning, right? We all know where that comes from. Bill Parrish, Anthony Hopkins. So this relationship, it would be like struck like lightning. What was that saying? What was it exactly? Do you remember?
Sometimes it's something to the effect of every once in a while in life, lightning will strike.
So
Meaning,
lightning.
you meet somebody. The
Yeah.
implication there is that, and I just want to say, before you get to, you remember, yeah, that's what they say to each other. She said, one of them says it. Lightning will strike, implying when you meet somebody, the right person. Yes.
Right. And then we got that. She's captivated. They leave. They walk away from each other, going their own direction. They keep turning towards each other. They miss each other. And then he gets in the street.
There you go.
And you're
There you go.
there.
Before you say, they look at each other and they keep
Right.
missing, right? So
Right.
nice.
And it's just like she turned around and he's walking. And you know what? I think I don't know about you, but I've been in that type of moment before where you just like, you look and like, you go and you just kind of look. And, and it's just like missed opportunity, right? You think you're just never going to see this person ever again. And it's like a little heartbreaking. And that's what's taking place in this scene. And then he gets out there in the middle of the street, and you're just like, ah, and then boom, he gets hit by a car. Not one, but two. And then
Two cars.
Two cars. Now, boom, boom, right? And that's it. And then the screen goes black. Now imagine seeing that in a theater. And you're sitting there in this big screen and you got this love thing scene. And all of a sudden he gets hit by two cars. And then it goes black. The audience, you could hear a pin drop. And it was like, and then that was it. and then it just went on into the continuing on to the movie, and that probably was the most just that caught my. I think about that moment, and Ruben, you said that's the part you were thinking of, right?
It's so, you know what it is? It's funny because I think this is true in music, and you know a little bit about music.
Hmm.
And in good scenes like this, is the element of surprise is so striking in that scene. You're not expecting it because you have this sweet moment and this kind
Yeah,
of longing, like you said, like, oh, that lost moment, but it's also sweet. And then, whoa.
right. Yeah, so that was one of that moment will forever I will forever be in awe of that moment. So
Yeah, it's funny that you guys both
uh,
that's a scene that I think about too, and it's just I think, but you know, Richard, I don't think I saw it in the movie theater, so I think I might have always saw it on. I see it every year. I've seen this like 10, 12 times, maybe more. But to see it in the
Is that
big
right?
screen, yeah, I see it
I
every
didn't know
year.
that.
There's like 4 or 5 films I see every year on purpose, and I'll tell you about that later. But this is one of the movies I see like every year because I love this film.
no,
This is one of the top films I just love. If it's on TV, I'm watching it. I'm watching it. It's 3 hours though. That's the only bummer, but I've learned to love the 3 hours. At first I was like, ugh, but anyway.
Let me ask,
that's
I
why it
guess,
took me.
uh,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you guys, as you're watching it this time around, I mean, we're different people when this movie came out. So, right? It came out in 98. And I'm assuming, Jake, you saw it around 99, 2000, right? If it's
Yeah.
video or DVD. Um, we're different people many movies have come out since then. This is a different style shot film. Like it feels like it's 3 hours, but it's taking its time. It's not rushing through 3 hours. It's letting it breathe a little bit. And so therefore the moments when they hit have a greater impact, I think. And it doesn't push. Yeah, I said that about the performances, but also I just think the movie just kind of bathes over you, old school style. I don't think you can make this movie today the way it's shot, you know?
Probably
Any
probably not.
No.
And
Can I share a scene that really blew me away? Not blew me away, but that I really enjoy is the scene where Brad Pitt's character, Death, Joe Black, goes to visit um, uh, Susan Parrish, right? And she's a doctor. And before
eh,
go ahead.
yeah. I do
And
want to set up
Mhm.
this idea before you do so
Sure,
that
sure.
people understand that now you've got the idea of death embodying a person, and it's death. And it's following the Anthony Hopkins character, and it's about to take Anthony Hopkins, but it says, you know what? I want to take a little break. Let me let me stay with you. And it's basically death wanting to experience being a human. So he
Mhm.
visits which is Anthony Hopkins' daughter. She's a doctor at her
Yeah.
hospital.
And I do also want to mention with Anthony Hopkins though that he chooses him because he's an honorable man. It's not like he just chose anybody. It was done on purpose. This is a guy who is a respectable human being, and I want to choose him to do this with, to take this holiday. So now Brad Pitt's at the hospital visiting Susan Parrish, which is Claire Forlani, and he visits her, and he sees this woman who's in a wheelchair, and she's from Jamaica, right? And she is speaks the language, and she looks at him, and she right away she knows who he is. She just is like just that her face. It scared me a little bit just because her face. She's a good actress because you just felt it, like she knew exactly who he was. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" You know? And he starts talking to her in her language, and I'm like, man, does Brad Pitt know, does he know how to speak more languages than English? And so that was really eerie. But after a while, I started getting a little bit more comfortable with it because I think she rested. He basically told her, I'm here on holiday. Don't worry. Because I think she thought, "Oh, are you taking me?" And then when she realized he wasn't too scary, she was, you know what, maybe I'm ready to go. So I just thought that was a fun scene, but at the same time, it was a little scary at first. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I will just say that your because you mentioned Claire Forlani. If anybody knows anything about this actress, for those of you, she doesn't get the kind of heat maybe that other actresses in that generation. I mean, she's my age, but There's a lot of Gwyneth Paltrow, got a lot of the heat, a lot of other actresses, but she is a very, very fine actress. She's classically trained. She has a proper English accent. And when you watch the movie, you wouldn't even guess that. Like she's American, right? I mean, her performance is just perfect. If you watch her performance, and this time around, I paid attention to that. She really stood out among some giants here on the screen that she's with. She doesn't rush those lines. Her sense. Now, I just want to say, and I agree with you. I have nothing to add to what you said about that scene. Fantastic scene. So I won't even add to it. But I just want to mention something about Claire Forlani is her role is very tricky. Okay. I love when they write well for women because a lot of times directors will just, oh, she's the love interest and throw her in there. She's not just that. She has to play somebody who's also engaged to be married and then meets Brad Pitt, who's hitting on her. Right?
Right.
That she has to balance that and not be too flirtatious and it's such a good tone to her performance. Loved it.
Right.
Any thoughts, Richard?
Yeah, and the hospital scene with the Jamaica lady, I'll leave that alone. I love it. It was perfect. It was perfect to identify Brad Pitt, who he is in that movie. Claire Forlani, is that it? Forlani?
Yeah. Forlani, yeah.
I'm mistaken her for Minnie Driver.
Really?
Another English
Yeah,
actress of that genre, yeah, that generation, yes.
And I referred that someone I told him a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, you got to see it. Minnie Driver's in it, and I didn't. I kind of confused. Her acting is so believable, and it's so like you're classically trained, right? And it shows. I mean, impeccable. The acting is. I love acting that you totally take me away. I totally believe your character. I believe who you're trying. You have me. I am totally sold on this person that you're trying to portray. And there's not. You're not. It's. You're not. You can tell that you're not struggling or anything like that. You're in this trance, and I was in it last night. I'm just watching it, and I'm like, this whole thing captivates me. The whole thing. Her interacting with Brad Pitt by the pool, at the dinner table when he shows up for dinner. That first night.
Her eyes say a lot, huh?
What?
Her eyes say a lot.
Yes, you can see it in her eye, and that they're intense. And it's just she's just a trip. I just love her.
I do too, and I think. Oh,
No, I was gonna say, can I just say something? 'Cause I think we might forget this actress because every time I see this film, like I said, I've seen it several times. I kind of try to look at one thing different, and the one thing I really focused on this last time was Marcia Gay Harden's character. She's also trained and a stage actress, and also done several films and TV. But man, she was so wonderful as the daughter who's not as loved. I hate to say this, but sometimes in some families there's favorites, right? Or maybe in all families there's like a favorite, and she knows she's not the favorite, but she still loves her father, and she wants to be loved, and she is loved, and she knows it, but it hurts a little bit, and you just see it in her face, and you also see it in her actions and her body movement, and how she just wants to just please her dad and do this wonderful 65th birthday for him, and it's just to have him just hopefully dote on her like he dotes on his on the Susan character. So I don't know. I thought she was just great. I mean, we could say it's all the. I mean, this is a film that had some great performances, but this one's I think is easy to not kind of like not even pay attention to, but she really adds to the film.
She is a fantastic actress, and if you don't believe me, besides this movie, Miller's Crossing, she plays the lead, and Coen Brothers. The other, I do want to mention, in case it slips away, talk about a perfect theme or I should say a good theme, but a perfect metaphor where you have the idea of our lives are mortal. It can happen at any moment. Our life can be gone. And the look on Anthony Hopkins' face as he shows this metaphor of what am I going to decide here in my business life, besides my personal life? How am I going to behave knowing that I have very little time? Which that's all of us. That's all of us. We have very little time. And everything changes. Like the big things aren't even so big anymore. There was a really nice moment. So Brad Pitt's everywhere he goes. It again, we talk about tone. It strikes a nice tone between humor and kind of drama. Like this idea of Brad Pitt just sitting there staring at the boardroom, not saying much. It's funny,
Yeah.
but it's also real. It's also powerful. And when Anthony Hopkins realizes he loses his whole business, basically, or it's not going to go the way he wanted it to go, he cares, but he just at one point he just kind of walks out of the room because, hey, I'm going to die soon. You know, it really puts things in perspective, and it's one of these movies that you think about long after you walk away from it. It's like, yes, this is the metaphor that I need to consider for how I make decisions in my life. I mean, I don't want to sound too preachy and ward people away from the
Hmm.
movie, but it's very entertaining, but it's also it's thought it really brings these thoughts into you and into your life. Anything thinking about that?
Yeah, can I just say something real quick, and Richard, you could respond too. But
No, go ahead.
just to tag along on what you just shared, Ruben. We just celebrated our father's 82nd birthday yesterday. He's not with us anymore, but he did do a couple things before he passed, and Anthony Hopkins did the same thing. In the film, Anthony Hopkins had dinner with his children every night. Once he found out he was going to pass away, and they were surprised one time. They're like, "We're going to get dinner again tomorrow night." And he's like, "Yeah," and he knows he's going to be going soon. So he just wants to spend as much time as he can with his children, which I know our father did too. And then number two, he's getting his business affairs in order, and one of them had to do with his job, and he put so much time into it. Not that that was more important than his family. He just wanted to make sure that things were going to be done properly as he's leaving, and he's doing that. And I remember my father was doing a lot of that same as well. And I think that's what we have to, as we're living our lives. We don't know how many days we have on Earth. And like you shared, Ruben, we're living here in a short time. So what's important? Those times with our parents. And, Rich, I know you have your mother. I mean, we have our mother. I mean, just to have those times with them and really spend good time with them and just think, hey, you know what? I'm enjoying this and I love this person and I want to continue doing that. And I saw that in the character of Anthony Hopkins, really just looking, just the way he even looks at his daughters, like he's just really taking the moment in. And I think we sometimes forget that. And I think this movie just reminded me of doing that, just even with my kids. Do you agree with that, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. And with a couple of things, I had written down, life and death. I wrote down life and death, life and family, life and romance, life and business. And this is life in motion, this whole movie, right? And there's death, and then there's family, and then there's romance, and then there's this business, this ruthless guy. Anthony Hopkins trying to keep all of that in balance. I'm not sure if what I'm saying is going to make sense, but
No.
towards the end, I mean, yeah, he's having dinner every night now. His family's like, what? and it's now he's starting to reflect on his relationship with Marcia.
Yeah,
Marcia, is that
Marcia
her?
Gay, yeah, his oldest
Yeah,
daughter,
Marcia,
Allison.
yeah.
Yeah.
His oldest daughter, and now he doesn't want her to be discounted at the end. And then at the end with the cake scene, right?
Hmm.
And she gets upset because he doesn't care about cake, you know. And she gets upset, and all of a sudden he just realized, this is important to her, and she's important to me, and I'm going to communicate that to her.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a piece of cake right now, and I want this one.
That was a
And that's
beautiful
him
scene.
reinforcing, and that's him reinforcing to her, I love you just as much. And now this cake matters because it matters to her, and she matters to him. Yeah, he's got, and the movie portrays, he's got principle, right? And he's got his business, and he
Yeah.
wants to protect it. And this is the last days, the last hours, and he's crossing his T's and dotting his I's. His family, his business, his principles,
Mm.
and he wants to make sure all of that's intact before he leaves.
Mm.
it just, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, I think it does. I think that's the
um,
message. I think that's one of the messages is
Yeah.
to take care of that, right?
In fact, on
right.
that note about how time is limited when you have something important to do, there's a really poignant scene in which talk about perfect casting. Jeffrey Tambor. Now, we haven't talked about the Larry Sanders Show much, I don't think, in this channel, but it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. That's why you can get me talking about that. I know Jake wants me to talk about the dramas. I don't have much to say, but I could talk about Jeffrey Tambor for hours. He's such a good actor. But in this film, he's perfectly casted. At one point, in tears, he tells Joe, who's talk about a good spirit throughout the film, this character who never questions, who never challenges Joe, but just kind of there's something to be said about support. He's supporting Joe and Bill Parrish, but he in tears tells Joe, Brad Pitt, I'm partly responsible for the breakup of this company. I'm partly to blame, and I don't know what to do. And Joe says, tell the truth. When death tells you to tell the truth, you
Right.
better tell the truth. And he says, I'll do it. Maybe I'll wait after the party. And Joe Black goes, oh no, don't wait. Don't wait till
Right.
after the party. I love that. I love
That was
that because
great.
it's do it now. Do it now. If you have an encouraging word to tell somebody, do it now. I want to tell somebody, I want to call them just to let them know, thank you for, I'll do it another time. Do it right then. It's such a great message of urgency because time is short. I just wanted to give that scene out as my last scene too, because I actually like that too about the dinner scene, about how he was having dinner. But you already mentioned that, Jake.
Yeah.
I want to mention this one last thing about the Jeffrey Tambor. But anything else you want to say in closing about the great? Oh, by the way, before I say on X, the question was greatest Brad Pitt movies, and that's hard to pick. But everybody was giving everything, and all kinds of answers to that. And I'm sorry, everybody knows the true answer. It's 12 Monkeys, Inglorious Bastards, and Meet Joe Black. There's
Oh
no
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to say about Meet Joe Black?
I want to say that a couple things real quick. When you mentioned that, I was reading up on this film, and Brad Pitt actually said that he wished somebody else did the part because where he was at that time, he wasn't in a good place, and he felt like he didn't give the performance that he probably should have. And I thought, wow, that's what he thought. I mean, I will say that no, no, no. I thought he brought it off because the character he played in the coffee shop to the death character are two different characters. And you could just see it, feel it. And so I can't think of anybody else doing it, even though I'm sure someone could have. But we're talking about this film 27 years later, and it still moves us. We still can learn from it. And so no, I think he did great, and I'd have to disagree with him. But I would say this too. One last thing. Death wanted to take Susan with him, and I think that is an interesting thing because she didn't know him. She knew this kind of character, but she really didn't get to know him. And I think in the play, Ruben, she goes with him. And so I think I like the Joe Black version of no. That was just kind of, I mean, she really didn't know who Death was. And if I think she did know who he was, she wouldn't go with him. That's just my opinion.
You've been hypnotized by Hollywood
Yeah.
and been desensitized. You need to be reinforced by
Okay.
good feelings and not the realities and harshness of life. Any
All
last thing,
right.
Richard?
It's just a great movie from beginning to end. It does start off kind of slow. The acting, Brad Pitt, I'm not sure if there's anybody else that could do it. Yeah, like you said, Jake, there probably is. I don't know where he was in life at that time, but he did it perfect. Two different
Yeah.
characters, the guy in the breakfast and then
Yeah.
death. And he delivered. I think he absolutely delivered what the director was going for. And 27 years later, it's one of those things, it's just a timeless movie. It had my attention yesterday just as much as it had my attention in 1998.
For sure, for sure.
Yes, and
Absolutely wonderful movie.
And
we all
thanks for joining us too, Richard. I mean,
yes,
I know we're finishing up here, but this was fun to watch it again, and knowing that you're watching it and us to chat about it. Yeah, it's been fun.
yes, thank you, Richard, for joining us,
Yeah.
and all three of us wholeheartedly recommend this movie, and we will see you next time. Goodbye. Like and subscribe. Bye bye.